Hello book lover, welcome to my channel. My name is Kay if you're new here, and today we're talking about the 12 books that I must read in 2026 as a Christian book lover. There's absolutely no rhyme or reason to the way I'm going to present these books to you. I just have 12 different books that I have been dying to read since I've been diving into Christian fiction. Some of them I know what they're about. Some of them were recommended to me forever ago, so I picked them up and I don't totally know what they're about, so I need to read them. Without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. The first book on the list is Counted with the Stars by Connellan Cosette. This is the first book of Out from Egypt. This is a biblical fiction book, so this takes place during biblical times before Jesus was born. This one was recommended to me actually like 4 or 5 years ago by a coworker that I was working with. At the time, historical fiction was absolutely not my thing, but as I started diving into Christian fiction, I realized this was a Christian fiction book that was recommended to me, and I have started really enjoying historical fiction, so this absolutely needs to be one that I need to read because the friend that recommended this to me, her and I love so many of the same books, so I know that this has to be good. Sold into slavery by her father and forsaken by the man she was supposed to marry, young Egyptian Kaya must serve a mistress who takes pleasure in her humiliation. When terrifying plagues strike Egypt, Kaya is in the middle of it all. Choosing to flee with the Hebrews, Kaya finds herself reliant on a strange god and drawn to a man who despises her people. With everything she's ever known swept away and now facing the trials of the desert, will she turn back toward Egypt or surrender her life and her future to Yahweh? So there we go. We've actually got biblical fiction during the plagues in Egypt. That sounds super duper intense, and I'm really excited to jump into that one. The next book is At Home in Mitford by Jan Karan. So this book, I actually picked it up when I first started jumping into Christian fiction. I went to my local bookstore to see if they had any Christian fiction, and they literally have like 3 titles on their shelves. That's really sad and depressing, but this is one that I picked up, and the bookseller said that she has such fond memories of this book that her mother actually gifted her these books, and that her and her mom would talk about them, and that they're super sweet, and they're following a pastor, and it's a small town, slow type of story. So I just think it's going to be super wholesome. This is the first in a series. It's easy to feel at home in Mitford. In these high green hills, the air is pure, the village is charming, and the people are generally lovable. Yet Father Tim, the bachelor rector who yearns for something more, suddenly finds he has more than he can handle. His life is turned upside down with church secretary Emma Garrett managing his every move, the appearance of a very large dog, a lovable but unlovable named Dooley thrust into his care, and the charm of an attractive new neighbor who affects surprising change in his stick-in-the-mud habits. Seemingly overnight, Father Tim's quiet life isn't so quiet anymore. So again, it just sounds super duper wholesome, and this is one of the first books that I physically bought in the Christian fiction genre, so I definitely want to jump into this one this year. The next one is kind of cheating a little bit, but that is The Lord of the Rings. This is an omnibus that I actually found on eBay. This has the first 3 books. I cannot find the link to this specific book, so I'm sorry. If you want the link to this omnibus, just go onto eBay and type in Lord of the Rings omnibus or thrift books and you can find one. For some reason, I can't find easy links to these on Amazon, but I wanted one for my Lord of the Rings readathon. If you are interested in reading Lord of the Rings, I am hosting a 2026 Lord of the Rings read-along called Tea in the Shire. I will link the video above where I talk about all the details of that, but I wanted an omnibus where I can go through and I can annotate this entire series in one big place and and I'm not counting it as 3 books, so there are 3 books in here, but this is a book that I absolutely must read in 2026. I don't need to give it any sort of explanation or introduction, but Lord of the Rings. The next book on my must-read list is a Karen Kingsbury book. So this is Redemption. This is again one of the first Christian fiction books that I bought this year, and I have not read it yet. Specifically for this prompt, it's more Karen Kingsbury, maybe not the specific book, but maybe because I did just start watching this show on Amazon Prime, and I am so hooked. The drama in it is so intense, so that kind of makes me really want to pick up this book sooner than later. There is a marriage that is falling apart. This lady's husband starts cheating on her with a student at his school. Oh, like college. That sounds really bad. Well, it is really bad. So in this book, you're following a couple who is now navigating adultery, and she really wants to save the marriage. She is a believer in God and all that kind of stuff. So I know this is going to be a heavy, intense book, but it's one that I definitely want to read, especially now that I started watching the show, because I am hooked by that storyline. I know it's probably going to be different in the book, but the book is usually better. Karen Kingsbury, this is Redemption, the first in the Baxter's series. So the next book, I don't physically own it, but I do have it on Kindle, and that is the next book in the When the Day Comes series. So I'm holding up book 1. This is by Gabrielle Meyer. The second book in this series is called In This Moment, and I absolutely need to read the second book. So this is basically a Christian fiction time traveler kind of magical realism story. There are these people called time crossers, and basically they were blessed by God to live 2 separate lives. They fall asleep in one year and wake up the next day and live the same day in the next year. So they have different bodies, but their soul kind of travels back and forth. It's a really interesting concept, and she explains it way better than I just did. But this book was so intense. That epilogue absolutely has me needing to read the second book in this series, so that is a must on my list. The faith content in this first book was absolutely so beautiful, so I can only imagine it gets even better as Gabrielle is writing more and more. Definitely In This Moment is another book that I need to read this year. The next book on this list is This Present Darkness by Frank E. Peretti. This book is just highly recommended. I feel like this is considered kind of like a classic Christian fantasy. It's definitely not a newer book. I had to find my copy on, I think, Pango Books. Can't really see, but the edges of this are so yellowed, but it looks really neat. So all I know about this book is that it goes into spiritual warfare. It's going into the spiritual realm. So what I believe this book is following is a pastor in a town, and basically there are dark forces that are trying to steal him to the dark side. I've heard this related to kind of the Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis. So I'm just really intrigued by this because it was highly recommended, and people have said it's a really impactful and good book on the topic of spiritual warfare. This Present Darkness is one that I definitely need to read this year. The next book is The Extraordinary Deaths of Mrs. Kipp by Sarah Brunsvold. So this book has been highly recommended on Christian BookTube, Christian Bookstagram. There is this woman, Mrs. Kipp, who is dying. There is this reporter who comes and sits with her and basically wants to brainstorm different extraordinary ways for her obituary to say that she had died. A throwaway assignment is about to change 2 lives forever. Aidan Kelly is talented, ambitious, and ready for a more serious assignment than fluff pieces she's been getting as a cub reporter for the Kansas City Star. In her eagerness, she pushes too hard, earning herself the menial task of writing an obituary for an unremarkable woman who's just entered hospice care. But there's more to Clara Kipp than meets the eye. The spirited Septuagint may be dying, but she's not quite ready to cash in yet. Never one to shy away from an assignment herself, she can see that God brought the young reporter to her life for a reason. And if it's a story Aidan Kelly really wants, that's just what Mrs. Kipp will give her, but she's going to have to work for it. So I've heard that this is beautiful, it's heartbreaking, heartwarming, it's hilarious, it's all the things. The faith content I've heard is really, really great. So I just have to know what all the hype is about when it comes to this book. The next book on my list, I have had on my reading list for a long time, and that is The Lady's Mind by Francine Rivers. Francine Rivers was my first author that I read in the Christian fiction genre several years ago. I read Redeeming Love by her, and this was another title that caught my eye by her, so it's literally been sitting on my TBR for years. So I definitely need to get to this. Francine Rivers writes absolutely amazing and beautiful faith-filled stories. They usually have a pretty big emotional punch to them, so definitely look up trigger warnings when it comes to Francine Rivers if you're sensitive to any specific content. It takes place in 1875 gold rush era. She's new to this lawless mining town. He's one of its most prominent citizens. Neither wants much to do with the other at first. So that's all I'm really going to share about this. If historical Christian romance is your kind of thing and you like Francine Rivers, I don't feel like I need to say much more than that. The next book is actually my challenge read for the year. Last year, I read Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy for the first time. And if you've seen Anna Karenina, it is a chonker of a book, and it is a classic, and it's one that most find very intimidating for all the right reasons, but I absolutely loved it. Because I read that and loved it, I want to start to every single year pick a big intimidating classic book to read to see what I think. And so this year I'm choosing The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. I don't think this is the full book. I ordered this ages and ages ago. It's been sitting on my bookshelf, but as I've gone into bookstores and I've looked at their copies of The Count of Monte Cristo, the books are like 5 times the size of this one. It's like a huge book. So I really don't know much about this story, and that's kind of what I like doing with classics, is I don't want to know too much going into them because I don't want to feel not dragged in or like too much has been given away. I think that this is like maybe a revenge story, maybe something to do with a guy in prison. I've heard the ending is really sad. I'm not sure, but this is just the book that I decided is going to be my challenge book for this year, and I'll let you guys know what I think. I think the audiobook is literally over 50 hours long. That's going to be my challenge classic for this year. The Innkeeper of Ivy Hill by Julie Klassen. So this book is one of the first ones that caught my eye since I've started going to Christian fiction. If I'm being totally honest, you guys, it's the cover. Like, this cover is so pretty, but I have learned that I absolutely love historical fiction books, and I believe that this is a romance too. I have heard that Julie Klassen is just an incredible historical Christian writer. Welcome to the English village of Ivy Hill, where friendships thrive, romance blossoms, and mysteries await. The lifeblood of the village of Ivy Hill is in its coaching inn, The Bell. That's so cute. The Bell? What? When the innkeeper dies suddenly, his genteel wife, Jane Bell, becomes the reluctant landlady. Jane has no idea how to manage a business, but with the town's livelihood at stake and a large loan due, she must quickly find a way to save the inn. How wholesome. Despite their strained relationship, Jane turns to her resentful mother-in-law, Thora, for help, formerly mistress of the Bell. Thora is struggling to overcome her losses and find purpose for the future. As she works with Jane, 2 men from her past vie for her attention, but Thora has promised herself never to marry again. So I'm just gonna stop there with the back of that one, but it just sounds so wholesome, and I've just heard such amazing things about Julie Klassen. The next book on the list is The Lawyer in the Laundress by Christine Hill Sunce. So this book, my friend, book lover Amanda here on YouTube and on Instagram, she absolutely loves this book, and her hyping it up just made me want to read it. This is a Regency era romance, so I know I'm going to end up loving this. There's just something about the banter between couples in Regency era books books are one of my absolute favorite things. They're just so funny. I can't help but love them. Lawyer James Kinney isn't looking for love, and laundress Sarah O'Connor doesn't want to be found, but their paths cross in a British colony on the brink of rebellion. A marriage of convenience may be their best hope of survival. So there we have it, The Lawyer and the Laundress. I am stoked to get to this one. So the last book on this list I actually don't own, but it's one that I am giving myself permission to buy for this year because it's one that I have heard such amazing things about, and it's one that I have eyeballed for years. So I figured why not add it to this list. This is a Christian nonfiction book, Practicing the Way by John Mark Comer. And the tagline is, "Be with Jesus, become like him, do as he did." We are constantly being formed by the world around us. To be formed by Jesus will require us to become his apprentice, to live by what the first Christian disciples called a rule of life, a set of practices and relational rhythms that slow us down and open up space in our daily lives for God to do what only God can do, transforms the deepest parts of us to become like him. So that's basically what this book is about. It's just implementing practices in your life to help you become more like Jesus, and isn't that the ultimate goal? Definitely want to check out that book this year. That completes my list of the 12 books that I'm really excited to and must absolutely read in 2026. Please let me know in the comments if you made it this far. What is one book that you absolutely want to read this year? Please don't skip out on leaving that in the comments because I want that to be a place where other Christians can find other books too that were more than just what I listed in this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Those things really help push out my content to other Christians that are looking for clean and Christian fiction. I appreciate you so much being here, the support that you've shown me in this channel. I am praying for you. I am thankful for you. I hope you have the absolute best week ever, and I will see you next week. Bye!